everyone. So we're going to start walking through Chapter 4. I divided the PowerPoint into little mini sections just to keep it easier so it's not like a 2-hour long video that you have to watch. So I try to put it into sections for you. A lot of students get frustrated with this chapter because it's very long. There's a lot of information and it's very abstract and microscopic. So it's hard for you to see and picture all of this stuff. But I promise all of this information is going to pay off in the end when we're starting to look at organs and within the organ systems. And I say, you know, it's this type of tissue. You're gonna understand exactly what that means eventually. So right now, again, we're just laying the groundwork for all of the stuff that's coming. It's a little frustrating, and I know you want to dive in and learn, you know, some of the big important stuff. But in order to get to the big important stuff, we got to master this stuff first. So let's talk epithelial tissue in Chapter 4. There are 4 types of tissues in general. We're going to focus mostly in this little video on epithelial tissue, but just in general, the epithelial tissue is the covering and lining. So if you're thinking about an organ, the inside lining of the organ is epithelial, the outside covering is epithelial. It's covering any exposed surfaces, it's lining any passageways like our mouth, inside of our nose, etc. And it's also our glands. So there's also connective tissue. That'll be another lecture, but that's where the spaces are kind of filled. This is a support material. It helps to transfer and also helps store energy. And then we have muscle tissue for contraction and nerve tissue for sending signals and communicating. That'll be the third lecture video for this chapter. So let's talk about epithelial tissues in general. There's 2 components. You have the epithelia itself, which is the actual covering, and then you have the glands, which usually excrete or secrete onto the surface. So some characteristics of epithelia, they're all made of cells that are connected through cell junctions, and we'll learn about the different types of junctions. They have a polarity to them, which means the top side's different from the bottom side. And they also have an attachment on that bottom side. It's called the basal lamina. It's kind of like just a little membrane that holds them to whatever they're anchored to. They're avascular, meaning there's no blood vessels going to this area, and they have the ability to regenerate themselves. So here you can see that apical surface of these types of cells have some type of villi or cilia on them. And then the other side, the basal side, has that basal lamina. It's kind of like a glue, cementing them down into whatever structure they're attached to. The epithelial cells themselves can be arranged in different ways, and we'll look more closely at that later on. Let's talk about functions. It's there for protection. That's number 1. It's a covering or a lining. So it's there for protection. It's also there to control permeability. Let things come in and let things go out, but not everything. It has to regulate that, right? It's going to provide sensation. This is where our sensory input comes in through our skin, for instance. We'll learn about that next chapter. There's also specialized secretions from the glands that are going onto the skin surface. So lots of importance there. Let's get back to this polarity. So that apical surface could have surface structures on it, such as villi or microvilli or cilia. Not all cells have that, but some of them will. And those are just specialized features to give them a specific function. The basolateral surface or the basal surface, that's going to help attach that cell to a deeper tissue layer or underlying surfaces. There's also intercellular connections, such as CAMs, cellular adhesion molecules. These CAMs are basically transmembrane proteins that help connect one cell to another cell. There's also intercellular cement, literally gluing the cells together. And these can be derived from basically sugary proteins called glycosaminoglycans, which are, again, they're just a sugary protein. The special cell junctions could be occluding or tight junctions. They could be gap junctions. Oh, there's a little person. Are you okay? No. She's not okay. I'll be right back.